decks, Monty. Which one do you like here?
I can't go against Domain Overlords. And in the hands of Derrick Davis, a player that has shown so much proficiency over the last 2 years with this exact type of deck at this playing field, I'm going to go with him.
Yeah, the deck is so very sweet. It's time for round number 5. I'm going to pass it on over to Marshall and Paul with our next round.
Yeah, thank you, Maria. Welcome back to the booth here at Pro Tour Ether Drift. Marshall Sutcliffe with Paul Cheon, and we're into the standard rounds now. Draft well behind us. We've got a round of standard as well behind us. So we're about to jump in to what looks like an interesting matchup, Scott McNamara versus Derrick Davis. We saw that Monty preferred the big hitter, the more powerful option out of the two. Do you agree with this, Paul?
Yeah, we kind of have a mild rock, paper, scissors metagame going on here with Domain Overlords, the various Dimir and Esper bounce decks, and the Gruul Mice decks. Basically, the Domain Overlords is slightly favored against all of these various mid-range bounce decks. However, it is a small dog against the Gruul aggressive strategies. So going into this, you have to favor the Overlord side. However, it's not a massive edge. We're talking about somewhere between 55 to 60% at the most is kind of what we're looking at here. And I did have the chance to talk to Scott yesterday and was just asking, hey, you're playing a Dimir version, which is very different than the vast majority of folks who's playing Esper. Does that help you against this matchup? And he says, yeah, I think it does help me a little bit, but he still feels like he's the dog here.
Okay. Yeah, that's a steep hill to climb. And if you've never seen this Overlords deck in action, you're in for a treat. Derrick Davis, a very capable pilot with just such a deck, and it is capable of some absurd things.
I'll play talent.
Yeah, Derrick's bread and butter is just green-based ramp strategies. He has had a ton of success. First top 8 with a very fun, I believe, enigmatic incarnation deck that was all kinds of colors, and just kind of doing the same thing here. So one of the better Domain players you will see. Just if there's a good Domain deck, Derrick's usually on it.
Play a Fear of Isolation.
A great aggressive start here from Scott. This is exactly the type of start you want in this matchup. You don't want a handful of those black removal spells that basically have no targets in this matchup.
-3,
exactly.
baby.
Nowhere to run is basically a mulligan in this matchup.
Yeah,
it has
tough.
no real good matchups, so no real good targets rather. So definitely want to avoid that. You just want to just get as aggressive of a start as possible and just kind of hope that Derrick doesn't have a Day of Judgment to kind of clear the board.
Yeah, he surveilled one away on the first turn, but Scott with the 1-2 punch here. Storm Chaser's Talent makes an otter, and then he picked it up with Fear of Isolation, so he's got an otter ready to go and a prowess trigger on it, plus the 2/3 flying, so that's 4 damage coming across to Derrick.
Look at this.
Wow, and he's just continuing to do the exact same thing. So now a pair of otters and a pair of Fear of Isolations. I mean,
this is a
Day of Judgment starting to look pretty nice here. Maybe a little too slow, that first one from Derrick. I don't know if I'm Scott what I take from it, but he put it in the bin, and then also he kept on top the last time.
Yeah, there's a pest control in Derrick Davis's
He has a main deck.
hand, so
yeah.
he does
and
have
it's
that
his
main
hand.
deck.
Yeah.
So could use that to possibly just clear out the tokens just to minimize the damage here, but going for the Ride's End here instead. Really nice addition here. It's an exile-based removal spell to kill Heartfire heroes, but also it's a 5-mana card, and Derrick Davis is playing Analyze the Pollen. Right? Analyze the Pollen is a card with Collect Evidence. So you get to play this 2-mana removal spell, but it counts as a 5-mana card in your graveyard, which is not only good with Up the Beanstalk, but also allows you to search for whatever creature you might need with Analyze the Pollen.
Yeah, this deck does play somewhat of a combo finish, at least that's how it feels.
And then after Ox, Kaito here.
Okay, so Kaito's coming in as well? This is going to be what? Yeah.
So Day of Judgment won't actually get the Kaito off the battlefield here.
Derrick Davis with a typically tap land heavy opener, but maybe paying the price here.
Yeah, this is a lot of damage here. And Scott does have a follow-up here, right? You can still just go Spyglass Siren, Fear of Isolation, pick up Storm Chaser's Talent, and replay it even through a Day of Judgment here if that's what Derrick chooses to run out.
I mean, that has to be here just to survive, but even then, you can't really like Derrick's chances going forward.
Now, there's also a Leyline Binding in Derrick's hand, which currently costs, it looks like 3 mana.
Yeah, he just played Cavern, so that's
Oh,
not
2
gonna
mana,
use
excuse
it.
me.
Okay, well, at least he found an answer
Okay.
for that.
Oh,
and
it
then he can
killed
clear off
everything.
everything. Wow, so it took 2 spells to get rid of the board, but he did so. Pest Control is going to clean up the otters.
Yeah, and now Derrick is fully stabilized because he also has the back of Day of Judgment in hand. So Scott, the only play, there's no playing around anything here. You just play everything you have. So he's just going to play as many flyers here as possible. Derrick can then follow that up with a sweeper and then enact his game plan of just all the heavy hitters he has.
Well, that worked out nicely.
Yeah, I mean, this was... Pest Control really, really well positioned in the current metagame. And one of the best cards to help combat these very, very aggressive starts that, you know, the Esper Pixie deck or even the Gruul decks can have.
He's going to lead with Spyglass Siren. He can follow that up with Fear of Isolation, pick it up, and then replay it. I'm not sure if that's what he's going to do. But you saw him almost play the Fear of Isolation first before deciding, nah, I'm going to get the Siren down.
Let's.
Oh, bouncing the map here.
So he wants to keep up 2 mana for something?
Does have Go for the Throat here, and maybe doesn't want to get Zerd into Animate, Leyline Binding, attack you, right? And you can take the damage, but you don't get the lifelink if you just go for the Throat the Zerd.
Right. Yeah, Scott's willing to take a bunch of damage, but 6 lifelink, not so much.
Also has This Town Ain't Good Enough here. This Town Ain't Big Enough, rather, which is quite strong here.
Big sigh there for Scott. This is a tense situation, no doubt about it. These players are both 4-0, 3-0 in their draft and winning their first round of Constructed. Analyze the pollen now from Derrick.
Looks like he's just looking for a land here.
Just going to grab a basic.
Probably then just looking to play a Day of Judgment here. You do that, Scott can then, that'll tap him out. You can bounce Leyline Binding and save one of your own creatures if Derrick goes for the Day of Judgment here. And then you can get another Kraken with the Kaito and then maybe Surveil, try to find some answers. He also has Overlord of the Mistmores, also an option.
Pinned Avatar, or Pinned Overlord.
Yeah.
You can bounce
I'll get 2.
a token here,
Okay.
not close to lethal here. You can also pay the full price here and pay 5 mana to just bounce both of the opposing tokens here. Because this town ain't big enough, what do you want to bounce on your side, right?
This town is going to hit the cheapest creature plus the Leyline Binding. And
Sure.
yes, Derrick is tapped out completely after
And-
playing the Overlord of the Mistmores.
Yeah, and you can tap down a creature and go for the throat something, and that's 5 damage.
Not quite enough.
Just even something like a Hopeless Nightmare, just to kind of
Yeah.
get you low enough, at least put yourself in position to potentially top deck Hopeless Nightmare for the win is pretty nice.
Nice.
Right, very aggressive then. Oh, you could also Spyglass Siren here, use the map, and if you go for the throw with the token, you can get Derrick down to 2 here. If you hit a spell off the map, right?
Yeah.
Because that's, then we're looking at 6 damage here.
Yeah.
Oh, and this town ain't big enough on top here for Scott McNamara.
And he left it there. Okay.
Come back.
Okay, no go for the throw, gonna hold that one. Yeah, you absolutely do not want to get Zerd here and have Derrick gain a bunch of life.
Yeah, Derrick, I mean,
Yeah,
I think that Scott's
5.
assuming that if that were to happen, that it would just be GG
right.
if the Overlord of the Mistmores got to hit for 7, lifelink it up, and make more flyers.
The issue is the Overlord will still be able to attack because it will have Hexproof, even if you kill the Zur, and you get 2/2/1 blockers out of the deal still.
So even if it doesn't have that lifelink swing, everything else is still.
But you kill the Zur, Overlord attacks, you don't gain the life, you get the 2 tokens left over, and then if Scott's top decking This Town Ain't Big Enough, you can just use that to kill the 2 blockers and
yeah.
potentially attack for lethal here. So Derrick has to be really careful here. I think if he goes for the Zur line, that might not be enough.
And he could leave himself wide open.
And he knows it's on top.
That's right.
Sure.
Okay.
Oh, he's going for it,
Oh, he doesn't know about go for the throat, right? So
right?
Combat.
He's going to find out shortly, though.
Where are you attacking?
Here's.
Oh, where are you attacking? Kaito. So he'll block and then go for the throat. Zur.
Right, but this is going to be lethal here, right?
Yeah,
you
that
just bounce
is-
both cards,
that
both
is
tokens.
lethal.
6 down.
Yeah. What do you got?
I'm at 5.
5. I'm gonna template two things.
Yeah, you're
Yep.
And he had the line. Scott
Wow.
McNamara picks up game 1 in a tough matchup.
That is
Barely.
huge.
Barely got there, too.
Barely. And in game 1, I feel Derrick has the bigger edge there because you kind of blank all of your opponent's removal spells, right? Just based on how the deck plays out. Scott can then now replace those removal spells with more relevant, counter spells or hand disruption cards that could be good in this matchup.
Interesting. Scott's on 6, and Derrick has mulliganed to 5 here on the
geez.
play.
I'll play a talent.
And it's going to be talent here for Scott McNamara. He's going to get an otter, pass a turn back.
Now, Derrick does have pest control. So if Scott finds a draw with just a ton of 1-mana plays, then you can use the pest control to just kind of stabilize here.
Spyglass.
Okay. So pest control is going to be great here.
And I'll use a map.
You'll be able to basically wipe out the entire board.
1.
He used a map and hit a swamp off of it. Gets in for 1 with the otter.
Right. It is pretty tempting here to just fire it off, although you can just impend the Overlord of the Hauntwoods just to get your mana going. It's the other option here. And then next turn, you'll have access to 4 mana, which will then give you access to pest control plus a removal spell. But
He's going to be go
yeah,
ahead.
but after sideboard, it gets a lot more difficult because your opponents can just have counter magic.
Right.
So oftentimes, if you have the ability to just kind of get a 2 or 3 for 1 in this case, you just fire it off.
Yeah, that did do good work. Pest control clears the board.
Sure. I'm gonna Tidebinder the land trigger.
Counters the land here, very strong.
Yeah, that's huge. It also erases the text
It's okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
on the Overlord there.
Impending ticks down. Enduring Curiosity.
2 cards.
First Scott's hand, so he might just run it out here. He doesn't have any counter spells. Just draw the cards.
Get a card off of
Yeah.
it, right? There it is.
There it is.
Enduring Curiosity, attack, draw a card.
Yeah.
Down to 16 falls Davis. Scott takes a quick
cards.
look at the top card of the library, puts it in the pile, and says, your move.
And all Derrick has right now is a couple of interactive spells. Oh, great draw there because you have the Ride's End as well. So now you draw a card here. You use the Ride's End when Enduring Curiosity attacks. Draw a card. Get that threat
Exile
off
it.
the battlefield. You exile it. It's huge. Now, I wonder if you're on Scott's side, do you maybe not attack with Curiosity? Is that even a consideration?
Nope.
7.
Nope.
But he is going to get punished here.
before blocks. This triggers.
Give us
Sure.
just a second.
It doesn't hit enchantments. Or like it hits enchantments, but it doesn't
it's the
turn
trig-
off enchantments.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's only artifact creature planeswalker.
Artifact
that turns off
creatures,
abilities for, and it's
planeswalkers
not a
that
creature
lose the
right now.
ability. That's right,
And it's
Derek.
an enchantment.
Okay. So before that trigger resolves,
Yes.
I'm gonna go for the throat.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. You want
gonna
you want to
die.
keep
Kill his own Curiosity.
Yeah, you want to keep that as an enchantment in play just to draw a card when the Tishana's Timebinder deals damage,
It
I'm
will
currently
still
at 16,
let Derek
he's
draw a
at
card
20,
off of
about to
the
take 3
the
good
beanstalk.
Beanstalk.
right?
Trigger.
But now he's going to take 3 and draw a card. So Scott adding to his stockpile here.
Yeah, and Derek has a Get Lost, which you can use on the Enduring Curiosity, I suppose. But actually playing it slow, look at his hand. He has a Storm Chaser's talent and a Fear of Isolation, but choosing to play around a sweeper, and now it makes a lot more sense. He's got another Tishana's Tidebinder in hand.
Okay.
So if Derek has a Day of Judgment or a random spot removal spell, you can just play the
So
3/2.
I'll Tidebinder that trigger.
All right, slows down the impend here.
Still needs to.
So that's just a delay.
Right, and now Derek's, killing the Curiosity, recognizing that that's going to be how Scott just pulls further and further ahead with his cards, allows him to maybe draw the negate that's in his sideboard.
A couple of maps for him and a pair of Tidebinders.
Yeah, but these maps are nice too. It's not an irrelevant
No.
card here.
Ooh, there's
Ooh.
Kaido.
Seems like one of the stronger cards you can have right now.
Yeah, it's going to stick around.
Yeah, got to keep it.
Now does he activate it again for more damage?
He's going to spread the counters out, or
Yeah.
Hasn't changed.
Hasn't changed.
it
It's
hasn't
down to
changed.
5.
It's a big attack.
Go.
Derrick has nothing. Just needs to draw a sweeper or something to be able to stabilize here. It's a big board.
His Overlord scoring a little too slow thanks to the
Okay.
Tidebinder.
Leyline Binding, certainly a great card here.
Oh, wow.
Kill a creature, draw a card. You get a redraw here.
Sure, that resolves.
That's incredible.
Okay, so not dead here, unless there is a Sanctuary in play.
Okay.
So I think
Oh, he is
Scott
just
just
dead
has
here?
it. Yeah, if he just activates the land and attacks, that's an attack for lethal.
And
That's
that is
7.
exactly what he's going to do. And all Derrick can do is sit there and stare at a land in hand. An upset here from Scott McNamara. Yes, it is.
Wow.
A 2-0 win. And Derrick looks pained by that. You can tell he's like, ugh. And that first game was so close.
Yeah, that first game was extremely close. And then in that second, I mean, coming into this tournament, when you are this domain deck, this is the type of deck you want to play every single round. That doesn't guarantee you a win, but that is why you brought this deck, and it's always going to sting a lot when you do lose to this matchup.
Especially when it's a player of Derrick's caliber.
Yeah,
That's a tough loss to take.
absolutely.
I think Scott's going to be quite happy to come away with a victory.
Yeah, I mean, what a start here for Scott McNamara. This is his first Pro Tour. Now, for a lot of you folks who play maybe a lot on Magic Online, he's played a ton. He's one of the grinders. You'll know his account name is Oaf McNamara. He's done really, really well. I mean, even when he did well at the Spotlight event, he was the runner-up. I was going to play I was like, oh, that deck looks cool. I'm going to play it. I just literally messaged him. I'm like, how do I sideboard with this deck? So this guy, he was one of the guys who was part of the team that really helped innovate the Dimir version of this deck, and he did well with it. If it isn't broken, why fix it? And he's certainly proving his worth here in this tournament so far.
He's 2-0 with it right now and looking forward to the next round. We've got more coverage from this round, though, coming up for you. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll have Ben Stark versus Daniel Sondike. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to coverage here of Pro Tour Ether Drift. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. I'm with Paul Cheon. We are in Chicago, Illinois. It's properly chilly outside, but here in the convention center, we've got MagicCon happening. Literally thousands of players coming out to battle and partake in all the events that we have going on here, but we're focused on the Pro Tour here. That's Paul Cheon. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. Thank you so much for joining us. We are in Standard, and we've got undefeated players. Ben Stark, maybe you've heard of him.
Stark?
Yeah, he managed to 3-0 his draft, which is something I've said countless times here from the booth, but he's also picked up his first win in Standard. He's playing against Daniel Sondike, who has done the exact same thing, 3-0 the draft and then pick up a first win in Standard. Two very, very different decks, though, here. We have Orzhov Pixie, kind of a grindy, cheap cards kind of deck, versus Jeskai Convoke, which is, I mean, it says Jeskai, but there's a lot of white cards in that deck.
Yeah. I mean, Daniel's just playing the classic go wide strategy, and Ben, really interesting. Of the bounce variations, Ben is just choosing his own color combination, because oftentimes people will say blue is the best cards for bounce because you play Storm Chaser's Talent and this town ain't big enough. But Ben actually just going, you know what, I don't need the blue. I'm going to play Orzhov Pixie instead and just try to play a mid-range strategy and just have really the Pixie as the only way to pick things up.
Yeah, so many cheap, grindy cards here. Also, one of his favorites, Liliana of the Veil, is making an appearance.
Which is very bad against Jeskai Convoke, right? Using Liliana's minus ability to make them sack a random token. Daniel's playing cards like Nesting Bot and Gleeful Demolition.
It gets worse. Ben also has 4 copies of Momentum Breaker in the main.
Yeah, and those cards are good against Gruul.
Definitely.
Right? Because Gruul, you know, they're playing, every creature is very relevant, but here, they don't really this deck is just capable of producing 2, 3, 4 tokens, and so these Edict effects are very, very weak. Now, there is a card in Ben's deck that's extremely powerful in this matchup. He's playing 4 copies of Temporary Lockdown Main, which is absolutely incredible against Jeskai Convoke.
Yeah.
And I'll activate the Warden.
You also can see he's got Grim Bobble. He has 4 of those, too.
Yeah, that certainly helps. Sweepers are the absolute best thing you want to be doing in this matchup.
Yeah, Ben's going to have to set up for that, but a lot of action already for Daniel. Look at this board.
This is turn 2.
Warden of the Inner Sky already up and running. He's got Nesting Bot sitting there.
Start your engines. Didn't think we'd be seeing too much of that in the constructed portion.
No.
Pass. Bottom.
And this is after Ben killed something on turn 1.
He did. And there's the
Get a guy. Yep.
Momentum Breaker.
Momentum Breaker that we just talked about.
Yeah, kind of embarrassingly bad in this
Really
particular
bad,
matchup.
yeah. I can see this, though, against the Gruul Mice deck. I mean, this seems awesome. Like, look at this opener from him.
Right.
Is Ben going to get his engines started as well?
I mean, if Ben does have Temporary Lockdown in hand, that just completely turns it around, right? And he does have 4 copies of that, so that's what Ben's going to be hoping for here. One card that Ben's playing that basically nobody plays anymore.
He just noticed it now. There it is. Start those engines.
4 copies of Unholy Annex Ritual Chamber. Oh. That has all been hated out because of This Town Ain't Big Enough being such an important card in this format. Nobody plays this card anymore just because making a 6/6 demon token, it's just so easy to kill that card. But Ben needed another card to kind of grind people out and chose to play 4 copies of it.
That is the engine that fuels this whole cheap interactive strategy. And there it is, the Temporary Lockdown.
Okay, that is huge.
Got
Woo!
What was that, a 5-for-1?
Yeah. He got his own Momentum Breaker out of there too, but
So if Daniel finds some way to kill it, then
he'll
he
get one back, yeah.
Yeah, and the Jeskai Convoke deck really doesn't have a great way to come back from this type of sweeper unless it has a draw that includes Knight Errant of Eos, right? You go creature, 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 Knight Errant, refuel. But if you don't do that, I mean, this was just a devastating turn. And he didn't even play anything this turn, probably representing Resolute Reinforcements.
Yep.
And there it is, the Unholy Annex.
Oh, nothing. Never mind.
He just has nothing?
Wow. That means just now, if you're Ben, you're just kind of playing the game of what does he have in hand?
Thank you for 3. I take 1. I go to 18. You go to 12.
Justin Imadane's recruiter.
Okay, but with no friends.
With no friends, probably possibly a case of the Gateway Express. That could be another type of card that,
Right.
that Daniel has. Demon time,
It is. Let's do it.
and you know what? This Jeskai deck doesn't have a lot of ways to kill a demon. It's got case of the Gateway Express, but we are not even close to having 6 creatures in play to be able to kill
No,
a demon.
no, not after that lockdown. Yeah,
I'll play
big
this.
sigh. There it is. Is this too late is the question.
Feels that way. Ben's
I
going to
will.
crack in for 6 and drain
Oh,
Daniel
nice.
for 2. Assuming Ben has any sort of interaction in hand.
Which he almost certainly does. There's Grimbauble.
Edict you.
Edict
Oh,
you
yeah.
as well, so
This
that's
is
going to
a-
wipe the
Yep.
whole board. Jeez. That game turned around very quickly. Ben Stark, temporary lockdown. It ended up being a permanent lockdown as he picks up game number 1. Once that spell resolved, it was over.
Yeah, that is just the one card that is just so brutal, especially game 1. Now, after sideboard, things get better for Daniel. Has access to some counter magic and can even possibly bring in Destroy
gonna,
Evil
map.
as a way to kill
Go ahead.
enchantments. And you can kill the demons as well, so that could be a card that Daniel could consider bring in this matchup.
Spyglass Siren for Daniel Sondike on turn 1 here. Tap land from Ben.
I'll,
Yeah, temporary
Activate the
lockdown
map.
so important to this deck build. It has so many ways to kill individual
Thank
big
you.
creatures, but you have to clean up the mess.
your turn.
Big hit with that land here for Daniel. But kind of a slower start, right? You usually kind of, when you see the Jeskai Convoke deck,
Thank you.
when you see it play out, usually it's 1-drop into double 1-drop or Resolute Reinforcements. But Daniel taking a more measured approach here, recognizing that Ben does have access to a ton of sweepers in the temporary lockdowns.
I heard Daniel sigh there. He's like,
Yeah, this is tough. Ben even brings in 2 copies of Beza, the Bounding Spring, which in a token matchup, you're just always going to have a 4/5 that gains you 4 life and makes you 2 tokens.
right. Did Ben break it?
I don't think so, but he
Because
has
he's
good.
still gonna face down
Look, if
this
he,
time he picked
if he
up.
plays Jeskai Convoke every round, maybe.
Yeah. There's Nesting Bot.
Was this after attacking?
I start my engines.
Yes.
Thanks.
Huh.
And that's
Interesting.
That's perhaps why he mentioned that with a little bit of resignation in his voice
Oh,
there.
you. Sorry. I'm not trying to steal it.
Could be a 2.
Yeah, I wonder if Daniel had something like Protect the Negotiators, maybe.
Don't you think it was just a mistake?
Very, very
On your turn,
likely.
I'm gonna get lost this time.
Okay, so I get 2 more maps.
All right. Get lost the siren. What does that mean?
Temporary lockdown? Nope. Unholy Annex. Could counter that. Protect the Negotiators. Would have forced Ben to pay 1 mana. There is a creature in play. And Ben is at 18, so you can't really
No.
let Ben draw a bunch of cards here.
Have to do it.
Yeah. But Daniel needs to gas up. Just a single Nesting Bot is just not going to do it here. That is one way to get it done.
Well, you said he needed to reload. And
Right.
This is how you do it.
Yikes.
Knight Errant of Eos.
He whiffed because given
No
that he,
way.
he convoked,
turn.
so you can only get
Oh.
1-drops.
That's right. Fair
It
enough.
shuffles the whole thing for some reason. I don't know why.
I believe you. Yeah, it's very strange.
They were thinking maybe you would
goes
just
to the
have
bottom.
to shuffle the ones that go to the bottom, but
Right.
it does say then shuffle.
You got like 3 cards in hand.
So
Maybe
not the,
they probably just ran out of room on that, right? No.
yeah, and not the most explosive turn here from Daniel, right? Just 4 mana play a 4/4, and you didn't get to attack.
No.
So if you are
that's a
fans
very-
of the Hall of Famer, Ben is seemingly in a pretty decent spot.
Maybe a little 5-0 start?
It's on the table. This is the event where you will likely see the most number of Hall of Famers, right? It's the first Pro Tour of the season,
Far less
and
impressive.
the Hall of Famers all do get an invite to the Pro Tour, so
I have seen many of them.
Got
yeah.
John Finkel's here.
Finkel's here, Paul Rietzel is here.
Rietzel's here. I haven't seen him in a while. It was great to see him.
Ben Stark, Martin Yuza.
I'll put this on an adventure and get to 2-2 knights.
Yeah, it's
And
gonna go for
I'm
trained
too
troops
speed,
here.
By the way, go ahead.
Okay.
You get 2/2 knights with vigilance.
I wonder if Ben has a follow-up temporary lockdown here, just because he fired that one off to just get some map tokens and a nesting bot out of the way. Now, even if he does play another lockdown, if Daniel just runs out the Imidane's Recruiter, that's still an attack for 8 with the current board, and that doesn't include a potential extra creature that Daniel could play out of his hand, because Imidane's Recruiter gives your entire team haste.
Yeah, that's just the recruiter doing the recruiter stuff.
Right?
Like all contained within one card.
Just incredible, incredible army in a can effect. This card was so powerful, he was even played in, older domain decks out of the sideboard.
It was also the mythic uncommon for that set in draft. It's had a big impact in kind of everywhere it's been, which is surprising, I think. I think if you just read it straight up, I don't think you'd predict that.
Whoa.
Beza, nice.
Cards.
Yes.
2 fish, a
Everything.
treasure, and 4 life.
Is he getting all the things?
How is he down a land in this exchange?
2 life.
No
that was 4 life.
kidding.
Wow.
I was at 6.
Just think about what just
No, I
happened
had you
here
at
for
14.
4
I had
mana.
you at 19, 18,
You're right.
14.
You're right.
Yeah.
It just looks like a 6.
Yeah.
It's not. And then I get the fish and a treasure. It's just like, thank you.
Oh my gosh.
So he got a fish, a treasure, 4 card, and 4 life, and
I would say that was a reasonable turn here for Ben Stark. Above
a
average.
card? What the?
That was insane.
He must have just been trying to see, am I actually getting all of this?
He didn't draw a card, I don't think.
Oh, he didn't get the card.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's the best part. I mean, I'm not even impressed anymore.
Play a nesting bot. I'll take a pain. I go to 19.
Nesting
play Warden.
bot.
Okay.
I'll,
You can get something going here with the Warden, maybe.
I'll activate Warden.
Get some scries, look for something. And the evasion could be very relevant if Ben doesn't have a way to kill the Warden. No good attacks here, though. Unless you play out the Recruiter and just attack with the Knight Errant for 5. But then Ben can simply just chump with a fish token.
Yeah,
a
3
fish in
cards,
there.
4 cards.
3 cards.
I think Daniel's down to, what, 1 card, too?
Yeah, I see that one sitting there. I think that's it.
Go.
Yeah, no
You're on
attacks at
2
all.
cards, 1 card.
1 card.
1 card. Thanks, Ben.
Yeah. So Ben, if he doesn't have his own card draw engine, though, he needs to figure out what his game plan is going to be too, right? He's officially stabilized, but Daniel is the one who, currently speaking, has a little more inevitability, right? You can kind of smooth out your hand with that Warden of the Inner Sky, and eventually you put enough counters on that thing, and that can just win you the game by itself, as it will be a giant flying vigilance creature. I wonder if Ben cited out all of his momentum breakers.
Probably.
Attempt another lockdown.
Ooh,
Okay, so he's going to
okay.
fire off the lockdown. Yes, you did see him use a treasure there, by the way, because it would have also gotten...
Yeah, uses fish, but recognizing that Warden of the Inner Sky is really, really important here.
Oh, and he did keep Liliana in, so
Yeah.
this is going to be another board clear.
Right, and given that Imidane's Recruiter is exiled, do you just keep the Beza back just so that the
Oh.
Recruiter doesn't kill
Second.
Liliana?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not me.
Right.
I would have missed that and just attacked.
Is that Ben?
Go.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The vigorous card flicking.
That's him.
The Kibler's not playing.
No. Kibler's more about speed.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was more
Number of riffles per second, it's Kibler all day. But if you want power,
it's a power play.
it's Ben Stark.
All right, so now Ben has his win condition, right? You've got the Unholy Annex, or the Ritual Chamber here, rather. And this is a very serious clock, and I just don't see how Daniel can come back from this point. The Convoke deck has to be explosive with some counterspell backup. That's how you win. Once you get to this point in the game with Ben at 18, it's nearly impossible.
And Ben's just been able to sequence this out both games where a well-timed temporary lockdown with an edict effect to back it up left Daniel with effectively nothing.
Make two twos.
And then the card draw engine comes online for Ben Stark, and
Right.
all of a sudden it's over.
I'll pass.
These recruiters could be scary, but Ben can just leave back at least Beza. Imagine it'll untap at some point.
Not optional, but there we go.
So, I mean, this is basically, this is a 2-turn clock here, right? You hit them for 6 in the air with the demon. You drain them by casting the Unholy Annex portion. So that's effectively 8 damage. Daniel goes down to 7, and then you do it again. And you still have a blocker left back, and you're at 18 life. Even if Daniel goes recruiter, you know, everything gets +2, +0 and haste, but that's still not enough.
I'm gonna plus it.
One mana.
Buyback
Oh,
Lily. Cast Lily.
There's the namesake card for the deck,
okay.
the Nurturing Pixie.
Clearing the board here, it seems.
2/2.
What did he pick up?
And,
He picked up Liliana. Still attack for 6. Get Daniel down to 9. You attack for 8 in the air next turn, and then you activate the Unholy Annex still. And that will get Daniel dead unless you draw something.
Yeah, that's going to do it. Ben Stark with an impressive match there, and also improves to 5-0. 3-0 the draft, that's kind of par for the course for him, but getting the job done here in Standard as well.
Yeah, Jeskai Convoke kind of coming in, not something you necessarily expect to play against too much. But I will say, Ben's deck looks really, really well set up with it. 4 copies of Temporary Lockdown isn't very commonplace in any deck. And the fact that he had it and drew it when he needed it in this matchup was huge.
Right, and you can see how this works, right? The Temporary Lockdown sweeps away all the little stuff, and then the Edicts take care of the big things. And
Yeah.
that's the name of the game for his deck, and he was able to show us that both games.
Yeah, and then you just find a way to win. It looks like his deck isn't the best at just kind of closing out the game, which is why he chose to play the Unholy Annex. Even though other decks are looking to play bounce effects to kill the demon, it's still a card advantage engine, right?
Yeah.
It still draws you cards. You have some ways to gain life with the 4 copies of the Momentum Breaker, which hopefully buys you enough time to find multiple copies of the Unholy Annex to win you the game.
That's right, and you know, there's a lot of cheap cards there, a lot of 1 and 2 mana spells. It feels like Ben gets to do things every single game. You know, putting a player of his caliber where he has options and, you know, isn't waiting around for something expensive every game. Hey, that's a good thing for him.
Yeah.
We're going to get a chance to watch Game 3 between Andrea Mengucci and Tony Portolan here.
That's not Mengucci.
Oh,
I don't recognize him at all.
no glasses?
No
I think
glasses.
he's got him on here.
Yeah, okay.
He does. Yeah, that's interesting. So they're both 4-0 coming in as well, and you see it's similar here. Domain Overlords, like we saw in our first match, and then Esper Pixie, which this is the more popular option.
Yeah, this is the one that most people chose to bring. You know, it's got a lower mana curve than the Dimir bounce deck, so you can have more aggressive starts, and it actually is pretty good against the Dimir version of the bounce decks as well. But in this particular matchup, you generally want to be on the domain side.
Mengucci with his signature glasses, ready to go for game number 3 between these two.
And Tony on the play here, which is good. Optimistic Scavenger turn 1. Okay. If you can follow that up with some
It's got potential.
Storm Chaser's talent, that's kind of the ideal thing here. Now, I wonder if Mengucci's playing any Baloth type effects in the sideboard. Doesn't look like it. A lot of various green decks have been choosing to play that as an option against specifically Hopeless Nightmare.
Which is, by the way, another card that Ben had. We didn't actually see one, but
Right. One of the best things to bounce. Beza being discarded here by Hopeless Nightmare. Yeah, so Tony's got something going here. Needs to probably put a little more pressure here on Andrea's life total. We've seen when Scott McNamara, he would have hands with 5 flyers in play by turn 4. You know, that's kind of what you want in this type of matchup. Even after sideboard, you just go, hey, I'm just going to curve out, play a bunch of things, keep up a counterspell, and hopefully that's good enough. Get lost here on the Pixie here, so slowing things down. Andrea just knowing, look, if I can just get to the late game with a reasonable life total, I'm looking pretty good. But this, I mean, this is what the bounce deck does. Hopeless Nightmare, bounce it. Hopeless Nightmare, bounce it.
Pick
Hopeless
it up,
Nightmare.
replay it, yes. And that is chewing up Mengucci's resources quite quickly. You could say he's already got 2 cards discarded to it in the yard.
Oh, and this is big, though. Overlord of the Hauntwoods here, giving Andrea the opportunity to ramp. Still at 15 life.
3 cards in hand, as you can see here for Mengucci.
So if you can follow this up with maybe a Zur or an Overlord of the Mistmoors, something along those lines, that would be just the perfect way to kind of get back into this game.
This is good news here for Mengucci as well.
And usually
using maps.
Yeah, and usually when this town ain't big enough is on top, you typically keep it on top. You get to deal with whatever permanent Andrea plays out. You can bounce her on a Hopeless Nightmare, get some extra damage in, and the damage from Hopeless Nightmare just it's actually kind of insane because you know, discard effects are already good enough to the point where sometimes people play cards like Tiny Bones joins up, but this one just deals damage on top of that. You bounce this thing a few times, that's already 6 to 8 damage by itself. Are we making a 4/4 here? Is that the consideration? Nope. Okay, Storm Chaser's Talent. This is a nice little board. Andrea does need to find a decent answer here at 12 life. Pest control would be really strong here.
It's going to be up the beanstalk for Mengucci, perhaps just continuing to dig for what he needs.
Yeah. Great card in the matchup as long as you just don't get completely run over.
Right, he's on the verge of it.
Yeah, he needs to have a removal spell here. Now, granted, after sideboard, he's very likely to have one here, but he absolutely needs one here. Get Lost, Leyline Binding. Looks like an upkeep. Yep, Leyline Binding. This is great. You draw a card off the beanstalk too. Still have two mana available, so there's a real shot that Andrea has another interactive spell here too. Potentially, if, for example, the Otter just becomes a 4/4 this turn.
Right. Yeah, we've seen these combos with Up the Beanstalk where you play cards that cost 5 or 6, but you don't actually pay that much for them.
Yeah,
you get the card back out of it without having to do the mana investment, and it's very hard to overcome.
Yeah, Beanstalk is this is such a good Beanstalk deck. It's just incredible. The synergies with Leyline Binding, Ride's End, and the Overlords. The game it's just a totally different game once you get the Beanstalk in play. All right, big turn here for Mengucci, down to 9. There's a Scavenger in play as well. I believe the Overlord should be at 2.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah,
he did do it last time.
This looks like a Mistmoors maybe. Yep, Overlord of the Mistmoors. Draw a card, make 2 2/1s. Great stuff here.
Yeah, this is adding up very quickly here for Mengucci. Good start from Tony, but is he going to be able to overcome this? We haven't seen the big finisher like Zur come down and kind of close the door, but we're getting there.
Right. Thing is, once you just play the attrition Beanstalk game, that's also just by itself good enough to win the game too. Now, if Tony does have some interactive spells, might just be interested in getting these tokens off the battlefield. That's what we saw Scott do to kind of beat Derrick Davis. This town ain't big enough, bounce a token, bounce one of my things, and he's doing just that here. How much damage Has that one Hopeless Nightmare dealt 10?
No kidding. Yeah, 8, something like that. Is it going to get nabbed here?
Is he going to take Hopeless Nightmare, or is he going to get the Pixie?
That's what I wonder.
Yeah.
He is
getting the
going to. He's had
Nightmare.
enough. He's had enough.
No more.
Mengu's going to draw the line right there. He does tick down both of the Overlords before passing back.
It is a lot of damage. The Optimistic Scavenger also in play, so now the Hopeless Nightmare is 2 damage, 1 counter, and a card.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
And there could be worse down the line, too. So stemming the bleeding there and definitely makes sense here for Mengucci's side.
Can Tony push through enough damage here with Andrea sitting at 9? But every time Andrea just plays something, he just keeps drawing cards.
This is game 3 between Andrea Mengucci and Tony Portolan.
Oh, look at this. We are just fighting for...
Wait, is he getting the Hopeless Nightmare back?
You know what card is busted? When you are fighting. You are using expensive removal spells to get back Hopeless Nightmare into play.
Totally. Wow.
Oh my gosh,
and
this
there
Hopeless
it is
Nightmare.
Again.
This thing's dealt like 12 damage.
No wonder they're fighting over it.
With that Scavenger in play, this is so much. Now Andrea's down to 5.
Yeah.
This is a lethal attack now.
So
Andrea has to chump. Now he can still come back. Like if he just slams Azure and attacks, it might just be over. But wow, what a turn here from Tony. Now even if he just picks up a Hopeless Nightmare here and plays it again, that's just game.
It is just game. Yeah, no, this is the big turn here for Mengucci because he has way too many things that he needs to deal with. And I think he is in that situation that you described where it basically has to be Zur because he can't kill both creatures and the Hopeless Nightmare, right? I mean, one of those creatures or the Nightmare is going to happen next turn.
I see a Ride's End. So we're going to do that.
Okay, draw a card.
Draw
it's
card.
Tapped.
You could still draw Zur if you have a land in hand and play it and activate. Oh, that was an Analyze the Pollen, so you can use it to get Zur, but you don't have the mana to play Zur and activate.
So then this is hope you can't pick up Hopeless Nightmare?
Or deal with, well, the Overlord of the Mistmoors, I believe, not Overlord, Overlord of the Hauntwoods will be a 5/4 creature, and it will be a lifelinker. So if Tony doesn't have any removal spells, it's kind of hard to...
Oh, there's Beza!
Okay.
All right, how about up to 6 life? That's a lot more comfortable.
That is big.
It would be very difficult to get the Hopeless Nightmare 3 times this turn.
Now, Storm Chaser's talent can be leveled up. You can use that to get a spell back from the graveyard.
Is there anything good?
This town ain't big enough, right?
Okay, that's good.
You can possibly do that.
But with...
You need 6 mana, though.
Fish, Beza.
Yeah.
And the Overlord.
So Tony is relying on the flying from the Pixie here to try to get in for some damage.
But then Mengu can pollenize.
Get Zur, activate, attack, assuming Tony doesn't have
removal.
Multiple removal. I guess he just needs the 1 removal. Like if you just kill the Zur, then Andrea won't gain the life.
Right, but then you'd still get to activate up.
You still get 2 flyers.
Mistmoors. So yeah, like
Oh.
Hello.
So that's 3 damage.
Halfway there.
Halfway there.
Oh, so close.
Yeah, and then if you pick up the Hopeless Nightmare, you get him to 1.
Get him to 1.
If you find another Hopeless Nightmare, maybe?
Yeah. Also, does Mengu just have the 1 card left in hand? Because if it is just that Pollen, then, he'd be cold top decking.
Oh, yeah, you just get that out of the hand, right?
If that's his only card, I can't quite tell if he's got another there.
It looks like it might be 1. If it is 1, you just go Pixie, pick up the Nightmare.
Yeah.
Put Andrea down to 1, and he has to top deck.
Yes, because he's not getting the Overlord of the Mistmoors here. Oh, this is so close. Okay, he did not do that.
I wonder what Tony has. Does he have an interactive spell?
Does seem like it could be the case.
He had a way to pick up the Hopeless Nightmare, right? I thought he had a Pixie in hand.
I thought he did too, but I'm not 100%.
Right, it could have been a Destroy Evil or something.
Yeah, that's the thing. It may not have been.
Andrea's like, all right, well, there's an active Kaito. You can probably kill the Kaito if you want to attack with your 2 big creatures, right? You just have both of them swing into the Kaito, the 4/5 and the 6/5. You probably want to do that anyways. You don't mind just chumping with some fish tokens. But Andrea thinking, do I just go search for Zur, play Zur, activate Overlord of the Mistmores, and then try to go for... Because if that thing connects and Zur doesn't die, you're super likely to win that from that spot, right? You're just gaining 6 life here.
Exactly.
And also the Overlord of the Hauntwoods. It's already activated, so that one also would gain you a ton of life.
So you're gaining 7 plus 5? Is that right?
It's... No, I believe they're both 6 power, so 12.
But if you Zur them, they're like equal to their mana cost or whatever?
Oh, sure, sure. Yeah, you would gain a ton of life.
So 7 plus 6 then, yeah. Yikes. But it doesn't look like he's doing that.
Just looking to try to kill the Kaito here. Will Tony let that happen?
Yes.
Okay. Because if Tony's hand is this town ain't big enough nurturing Pixie, then he's got it, right?
Yeah.
You just play the Hopeless Nightmare twice. You could analyze the pollen for another Beza, just to gain 4 life. Yep.
Yeah,
all right.
there it is.
There it is.
Because that's a more or less guaranteed way to get the life.
Exactly.
Like you don't have to count on anything.
You don't have to count on Tony like having some kind of interactive spell to mess you up.
That's a sweet play from Mengucci.
Right.
And he gets to have a Beza back to block.
He does.
Now he is ahead on creatures though, right? So he won't get
He
the
doesn't
fish.
get the fish.
But he's already got the other 2 fish, so he's in an okay spot there too.
But he goes up to 7. That's big.
7 feels
and there's no
like Tony can't get him from 7 to 0 next.
And there's no evasive creature on Tony's side.
Right. So 3 blockers here from Mengucci as well. Yeah, that's a nice line. I like that.
And an Overload goes to 1, so next turn it just turns on by itself as well. Great sequencing here from Andrea, looking at all the lines, making he's not going for the highest risk, highest reward line. He's going for the, look, I still feel like if the game just keeps going on, I have the edge. I have the Beanstalk. I have Overlord. I just do not want to get burned out by this 1-mana enchantment.
Sometimes you're forced to do a combo finish, and sometimes you have other lines, and Mengucci's a true master at finding the exact correct one, particularly in positions like this. You know, this mid to late game, he just always finds it.
So what? Oh, Fear of Isolation?
Yeah.
Okay. But I don't think Tony will actually be able to connect. That's the problem.
Right.
Here.
And even if he does, even if he had a way to do it again, he's still going to be at 3 as Mengucci. So, and he passes a turn back.
Ooh.
Yes. Super stable here for Andrea Mengucci. Now, if he has a way to find Zur, it's kind of a shut it.
You can just draw it.
A way to find it? How about just cold rip
Off
it?
the top here. And remember, that leyline binding has nothing underneath it.
Oh.
So that's kind of safe, too.
It's available. But maybe it's just the Overlord. Maybe it's both.
Well, the thing with the Overlord is if Tony bounces the Overlord, it's kind of rough. But I guess he can't because it currently would have hexproof because you need to deal with the Zur first.
Right. Yeah, right now Mengucci has priority.
The thing is, yeah, no matter what, that Overlord will come into play at the end of this turn. But he just needs to be concerned about the flyers, right? Just because that Fear of Isolation is representing potential lethal here.
Well, Mengucci's just going to attack again.
Yeah, so if Tony bounces or kills the Zur, Andrea doesn't gain life here. But then Andrea, does he have the mana here? I believe he can just replay it if he wants a blocker for the Fear of Isolation.
Right, as a flyer.
But if Tony draws land number 6, could level up Storm Chaser's talent, get this town ain't big enough again, maybe get Zur off the battlefield, but not quite enough to get lethal still, given that the Fear of Isolation is 3 damage, not 5.
Yeah, you'd need another Nightmare in there.
Yeah, just no matter what happens here, Andrea absolutely cannot connect with a life-linking Overlord of the Hauntwoods. Because if he does, he is effectively just stabilized here. Go up to 11.
And the board state as it stands will not work for Tony going forward. So
I think you just have to, yeah, this is a tough spot. He's just like, I think I just have to cast this. I don't want you to gain life. I'm just going to bounce Zur and my Hopeless Nightmare probably. And then just take 11.
Yikes.
Yep.
You could see Tony was not happy about that. This was a forced play in many ways. And he's still taking a chunk of damage here, by the way. Because the Zur thing really only took... Yeah.
There are no flyers, though. If you can somehow deal with Zur, don't you win the game, right?
He has a Pixie in hand.
Because you have Hopeless Nightmare.
Yes.
Put you down to 3, pump up the Fear of Isolation.
Yes.
But he needs to find an answer. And if he has the Pixie, he has Fear of Isolation. Excuse me, he can cast the Hopeless Nightmare twice, put Andrea down to 1.
Oh, down to 1.
But you can also force the chump block on the Zur, because when you play the Hopeless Nightmares, you pump the Fear of Isolation.
Okay.
And Andrea is going to be down to 1. So that's one way to kill the Zur, and then Andrea has nothing left.
Well, except for Tony has to survive next turn.
That is right. That is right.
Yeah, he is facing down 2 Overlords in that scenario. So can he finish the game now? Like this turn?
This town ain't big enough would do it if that's what he has in hand. That would just be lethal, right?
Mengucci's...
No, that doesn't quite do it.
Yeah, I don't know. He must just be talking.
That does give him another blocker, though, right?
Yes.
Andrea's at 3.
But Zur's surviving here?
No, because the Fear of Isolation is already a 4/5.
Ah, so it's chumping.
So it'll have to block here. Yep, force block.
So if Tony can't kill Mengucci right now, then it's can Mengucci kill him?
Right.
Like on this turn.
Well, but he has 2 blockers, and he's picking up the Hopeless Nightmare.
So the answer is no.
So Tony has lethal next turn. Can Andrea kill Tony this turn?
That's what I'm saying.
With some sequence of removal spells?
No!
No!
He found a land off the top.
That's 3 blockers. Only the 2 fish can get through. That puts Tony down to 5.
And that's the hand extended there. So close, this one. But Mengucci was not able to get over the finish line, and Tony Portolan picks up a super close game 3. Mengucci gives him the handshake.
He better frame that Hopeless Nightmare after this game. That was the MVP.
That was one Hopeless Nightmare. I want that one framed.
Somebody in chat, just tally it up. What was that, like 14, 16 damage?
Crazy.
Andrea gained 8 life off the Beza. Did everything he could. He played it so well that game to just give himself the chance to come back, but just turn after turn, Tony's just like, bounce my Hopeless Nightmare. Oh, you kill my Hopeless Nightmare? No. I kill your Leyline, but I got my Hopeless Nightmare back so I can burn you out. And he just looked like he was just playing an Esper burn deck, and he was able to get it done.
Off of one Hopeless Nightmare. That thing was like a ping pong ball on the battlefield there. But yeah, he does get the job done and hands Mengucci his first loss of the tournament. But they will play on, as will we here from Chicago. We're going to take a short break, but when we come back, we'll be back at the news desk getting set up for the next round. Don't go anywhere.